Vanavond topmodels singing on ice. Maar nu eerst Men with Talent.
Hi folks, John Cordisco back again with another great chess video for you. This is a game that was played in the new Super Tournament in Norway, Norway Chess 2013. It's a very super tournament. Give you an idea, out of the 10 participants, 8 of them are top 10 in the world. Rated number 1 Carlsen, rated number 2 Aronian, number 4 the current world champion Anand, number 5 in the world, the former world champion Topalov. Number 6 in the world, Karyakin. Number 8 in the world, American Nakamura. And there's also Peter's Fiddler, 6-time Russian champion, and Hammer from Norway. It's quite a field. I think it might even be the strongest tournament ever played. Anyway, this is a game between the current world champion Vishy Anand, who's black, and Timur Radjabov as white. It's an open Catalan. Timur Radjabov lately has been kind of on a slide. He played very poorly at the candidates tournament. That's to determine the challenger for the world championship. Won on tie breaks by Magnus Carlsen. I don't think I've ever seen Radjabov, at least in the last 10 years anyway, be on such a slide. We'll see how he does this game. Vishy is black, Radjabov is white. It's going to be a open Catalan. We'll go through the first few moves. It's pretty much standard stuff. D takes, bishop, c5, queen check, d7, queen takes the pawn, getting the pawn back, bishop c6, castle, knight b to d7, and knight to c3. Interesting choice might have been bishop to e3, and black would want rook to c8. After knight to c3, rook to c8 anyway. Or I think something you could have considered is, instead of rook to c8, b5, queen to d3, b4, knight to b1. And you're going to see something similar to that by Anand. After rook to c8, it's bishop to e3. Pretty much the same thing. I think maybe instead of bishop to d3, queen to d3 might have been a good choice, followed by c takes, knight takes, bishop takes, king takes, bishop to b4. Now I want to make sure here that I have my computer on. That scenario, it's about an even game, just a minute hair advantage for white. Right now it's basically an even game after bishop to e3 for white. b5, queen to d3, b4. And you can see the space that black is gaining. I mean, look at all the space he has to work with on the queen side here. That's a lot of space to work with. It's pushing white farther and farther back. After knight to b1, basically undeveloping his knight, he's going to have to reroute it. c4. Now we all can see why white didn't take the pawn. After queen takes, this bishop can just take the knight. Sorry about that, didn't hit my arrows. Bishop takes knight with an attack on the queen. Queen to c2, bishop e7, a3, and b3 for black. I think maybe an alternative could have been a5 instead, and rook to d1 for white. After b3, queen to c1 by Radjabov. You can see he's getting pushed back farther and farther. Radjabov is a world-class player. I know he plays a lot of solid stuff, he draws a lot, but just 3 months ago, he was number 4 or 5, I believe, in the world. He's down to 14 or 15 now. So he's been on a pretty good slide. I don't know, it's one of those things, you see it in sport all the time, whether it be chess, baseball, golf, anything. Sometimes you just hit a rut and you can't get out of it, and you're just going to have to work your way out of it and dig down deep. Knight to b6, knight to c3, knight on f to d5. You can see the pieces are coming. I mean, Vishy smells blood here, and these guys are ruthless, as well they should be. This is war. Bishop to d2, castle, knight to e5. Now, queen e1 might have been an interesting choice. As you can see, he's just trying to blockade. The knight's blockading here. If that gets taken, the bishop can take blockading. He's just trying to hold back black. After knight to e5, knight takes, bishop takes. What would happen instead if queen took the knight instead? Would go bishop takes, king takes, knight to a4, adding to the problems that he already has. After bishop takes c3, bishop takes, king takes. Right now, I'll tell you the truth, I wouldn't want to be white. It's only about a quarter of a pawn advantage on the computer. I leave the computer off purposely so people can go through the games themselves. I think it's a lot better that way. And anybody can stop, of course, the video at any time if you want to take out your board or just analyze it in your mind. Knight to a4 anyway. Rook to e1. f5. You think it'd be a bigger advantage on the computer than it is, but it's only about a third of a pawn ahead for black. But I'll tell you honestly, no matter what the score says, it's tons easier to play for black than it is white. Tons easier. Look at all the space that white has. I mean, look at all this space just on the queen side he has to play with. It's just incredible. When you have that much space, it's a lot easier. f3 for white. Bishop to g5 hitting the queen. Now he needs that bishop there on c3 to stop the pawns. I think at this point it'll be a good time to stop for these messages.
En dan komen we hier bij de slaapkamer.
Oh ja.
Met...
Goed, and here comes the kitchen, eh?
Yes.
And here I want a walk-in fridge. You know? Ah!
Yes.
So you like kitchen? Yes. Okay.
Volk fridge.
Hi folks, welcome back. I hope you enjoy those. Sometimes I'll put in retro commercials, sometimes I'll put in funny commercials or old introductions from old TV shows from America. I know a lot of people that watch these videos are from outside the United States. So, give you a little idea on some of the retro commercials and some of the retro old TV show introductions. Basically what American life, at least in part, at least what the TV showed, American life was like back then. Vishy Anand went bishop to g5, hitting the queen. The queen doesn't really have many spaces to go to, so it's going to have to go e3 to block. Bishop f6, hitting the knight e4. He's got to open up a little bit. White is so cramped. I mean, look at this board. You got all of this space here. All of this is all black, and this little part in here is white. You're that cramped up. You can't get your pieces out. It's hard to mobilize. It's really hard to play as well. Bishop takes, pawn takes, rook takes. Queen of d3. Black's not giving him a chance to breathe. Vishy knows he's got him. And he knows that Radjabov lately has kind of been on the skids in this game. So he smells blood and he's going after it. And frankly, I can't blame him. Rook to e3, hitting the queen. Rook to d5. He's still cutting off white space. Queen to e1. A little bit of wiggle room. He's going to be able to get his rook out from a1, which has basically been just sitting there doing nothing. Interesting move might have been instead rook to b1 and rook f to d8. Might have been worth a try. After queen to e1, rook f to d8 anyway, and rook to c1. Well, the computer shows an interesting line. Instead of rook to c1, rook to b1, queen to b5, queen to f2, and rook to d3 might have been something to look at. After the move rook to c1, white's 29th move. And usually these guys are pretty close to the time control. I know Radjabov, I've seen him play a million times. With this kind of position, this being this cramped, he can't afford to make one error. So I'm sure he's got to be fairly low on time. He might not be in huge time trouble, but he's fairly low. Queen to b5. And now comes the first move that the computer gives a question mark to, and that's rook to d1. It's about a 1.5, 1.25 pawn advantage for black. After rook to d1, it jumps up past 2. It suggested instead f4, reinforcing the e-pawn, getting some more space. There's no light squared bishop for blacks, so he doesn't have to worry about a light squared bishop coming down in his king position. That might have been a better idea, and to tell you the truth, that's a lot more natural move. Rook to d3 by black. Rook takes, pawn takes. Instead of rook takes from white, it suggests rook to c1. And it will go rook to c to d8, rook to e4, queen to b7. Might have been an interesting choice. After c takes d3, bishop to d4. I think, to tell you the truth, I think just queen to d2 might have been a better move. I mean, there's not... I mean, it's a weird position. They're basically in Zugzwang. I mean, it's crazy. After bishop at d4, queen to c4, bishop to e3. I mean, what else? What's he going to do? Queen to g1 doesn't really change anything. It'd be queen to c2, king to h3, queen to e2. I mean, he's still in a lot of trouble. After bishop to e3, knight takes the pawn, rook to c1, and that's where, and then pawn to d2. It's interesting, the computer says a forceful and devastating end. And this is where Taimur Radjabov resigned. It's a short game, 34 moves, but he was back on his heels the whole time. I feel bad for Taimur. Congratulations to Vishy. Maybe Radjabov, these things happen in all sports. I hope he makes out. I think he's an interesting character and he's a great player. Even though he plays for a lot of solid positions and constantly draws, I will call him a white player, as some people call him. He sees an opening, he'll take it, but he'll play you solidly like a rock. And this one, he didn't make out. He got pushed back on his heels and never recovered. Anyway, folks, that takes care of this video from round 7 from Norway Chess 2013. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully Radjabov in the future can bounce back. I like to see him be more competitive, especially at this kind of level, which he's more than capable of playing. And I want you to remember, folks, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. And I hope to see all of you in the next video. And please comment and please subscribe. Bye-bye.